Okay, so this is part 2 of the refactoring video. Please refer to part 1 for the beginning of this refactoring tutorial in Intellij IDEA 2019.1. Let's get started. So notice that the actual factory object, that's the specific a class, is being referred to here in the compute method, and we don't want that because this method is going to move to a base class, and we want this to be encapsulated. So what we really want here is just to convert this to a field of this class. So let's introduce here a field, which is the factory. So let's change the signature of this of the fork blur constructor, and let's basically introduce the fork blur factory, if I know how to type, and let's make it I think it's good. Let's refactor, and let's create a field and declare it final. And obviously here we want now to change this to our field, and the factory we want to add itself. So now we are able to create the fork blur object, and basically the actual factory is a field of the fork blur class, and it encapsulates the actual instance that is going to create the actual fork blur object. So with this change we can now extract a superclass, and basically let's call it abstract fork blur, and the methods that we want to move up are so compute directly. Let's make this abstract, as well as should compute directly. This is the main method compute that we want to move up, and notice that IntelliJ is marking these fields as red. It's because I selected methods that are using those fields, so we also want to move them up. And let's do the refactoring. Okay, so now we have the abstract fork blur base class, and we still need to make a few adjustments here. In particular, we have to pass the context object to super, and let's just change the signature and add the context as a parameter. And if we go to fork blur, obviously we have to add the context. So before we move on, let's just fix this initialization of these class fields by using the column selection mode of IntelliJ, which is actually a pretty neat feature when you want to make changes to to a column across multiple lines. So you activate with Alt-Shift-Insert, Alt-Shift-Insert, and then you type, and all of the changes are applied, and you just press escape, and boom, it's done. Okay, so moving on, let's rename this class to average pixels fork blur action. So now that we have a abstract factory, we can obviously now start adding additional implementations of the blur algorithm. So let's just, for the sake of this example, add another one, and let's call it I don't know, let's call it full fork blur action. And obviously let's implement these two methods because we want to have a concrete class. So let's just implement something here. So now we have another implementation of the abstract fork blur, and let's create a factory for it. So let's go to our factory here. Let's implement this interface, and it's going to be a full fork blur factory. And this obviously is going to instantiate the full fork blur action, which is going to take the factory as well as the context. And just like the other one, let's make it a singleton. A few more things I'd like to show is extract method. So you select the code and you click extract method, average pixels, for instance, and let's refactor. There are two more parameters here, so let's accept the signature change and let's replace all. So this is probably better to be renamed as a mask, and this would be a let's call it an offset. Let's also extract a method, and let's just say reassemble. So another thing, now that we extract a method, we can just select the local variable here and inline the call. Let's accept all of that. So now we have this. One thing that perhaps we should do is analyze the code base and inspect the code in the whole project, and just to do a few cleanups. So now that we ran the inspection of the code base, let's accept the suggested access level. So what we have here, declaration can have final modifier. Let's also accept that. Last but not least, let's go to the context and just very briefly show a bit of code generation here. So you type alt insert and we have a nice equals and hash code generation, and you can also do toString, and you select the fields that you want to be part of the toString method, and Intellij generates them for you. So a few more things here before wrapping up. So notice that the main method has, the main class I should say, has the main method and the blur. So one simple refactoring we can do is basically extract a delegate and basically call utils, and it's going to contain the blur method. So now notice that this implementation has changed like that. So a few more refactorings here. We can inline the source file variable as well as the source name. And we can do the same thing here for the destination. Can inline it, and the destination name we can also inline it. Okay, so and finally, so here if you want to swap the algorithm, this is the only place that you would have to make a change. Is basically pass in a new factory. So for example, we would use the full fork blur factory here, and that's the only change we would have to do. Okay, so this concludes the refactoring tutorial in Intellij IDEA 2019.1. If you found this tutorial useful, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments below any positive criticism so that I can improve these videos moving forward. This is Nilton from craftofprogramming.com. Thanks for watching.